Eden, we cannot hear you if you're talking.
I think mic is mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's start again. So regarding the language performances, here you can see for French Canadian, 100% translated, 99% reviewed. Spanish covering the Latin American region, ES419, also 100% translated, 99% reviewed. Same for Spanish covering the Spain region. Mandarin, also very nice performance rates, 96% translated, 94% reviewed. Italian, 100% translated, 94% reviewed. We actually have to find a backup person. Ilaria from Abstract Technology is leaving the organization, so I'll have to find a dedicated reviewer for that language now that she has recently left. Arabic, 100% translated, 86% reviewed. German, 100% translated, 92% reviewed. Portuguese from Portugal, 93% translated, 81% reviewed. Russian, 86% translated, 82% reviewed. Ukrainian, 100% translated, 86% reviewed. Hindi, very nice improvement here, 100% translated, 99% reviewed. So I know Young Nash spent a lot of time assisting with that, so special thank you for that. Portuguese in Brazil is 100% translated, 56% reviewed. Indonesian is at 78% translated, 40% reviewed. Danish, also very nice improvement here, thanks to Raccoon Gang, 100% translated, 99% reviewed. Thai is 66% translated, 50% reviewed. Greek, 88% translated, 38% reviewed. Turkish is at 96% translated, 92% reviewed. And then Hebrew at 94% translated, 83% reviewed. And then Spanish, Argentina, also Jessica is helping with that as well, 100% translated, 99% reviewed. Jessica is covering all of the Spanish-related languages and is very active here, so thank you, special thank you to her for that. Any questions regarding the translation performance? Yes, Cecilia.
Just a question regarding Russian translation and review. I don't know if it's sensitive or not. Does OpenEdX support Russian? I mean,
Yeah, we support Russian as part of the platform languages, and we don't have any plans to remove it. We try not to involve politics into the localization efforts of the platform, so we don't have plans to remove it from the platform per se.
Okay, so we got inquiries from, let's say, in Kazakhstan, those area, and Russian is spoken there as a kind of a second language. A lot of university, they taught in Russian as well. Maybe other people can correct me, but sometimes that's the case. Whenever they were asking, does OpenEdX support Russian? We can only say that Russian is enabled, the language itself on the platform. But I don't know in terms of other support. That's why I'm just kind of raising here because of political issues. But no one need to answer, just want to mention it.
Yes, no, I understand. Yeah, it is definitely supported. Yes, Omar, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks. I'm asking if any new languages are, let's say, about to make the list. If you by chance have like something off the top of your head.
So the way that obtain new languages in the as part of this particular group is if we find a dedicated reviewer for that language. So generally people will post it in the translation Slack, or sometimes they'll email it. In Transifex itself, we support over 130 languages. But for this particular group to cover it, we just need at least one dedicated reviewer who can confirm time for reviews and active monitoring. So if you have a proposal, or you know someone who may be interested in covering another language as part of this group, we're always open to accepting additional language. The idea is to have the number of languages grow over time and not remain stagnant. Initially, when we started this group, we only covered 10 languages, and we're at 19 now.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for explaining that. Yeah, definitely. I know I don't have a new nomination, but what I'm concerned about is that when we do the cutover, I guess we'll leave that for later. But because we'll talk about OF 58 and we'll discuss that part. But for now, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so any other questions regarding the language performances? Oh, okay, so as Omar said, the next transition point on the agenda is the efforts of ORP 58. There are two MFEs that are currently not part of the edX platform project. They are embedded in the new project Open edX Translations, the Communications MFE and the Library Component MFE. And so as a result of that, we couldn't have translators actively translating the strings for those MFEs because currently there are only a handful of translators in this group who have access to the Open edX Translations project. So we were trying to figure out what the timeline is for ORP 58 to go live, and when we can transition all translators and reviewers to the new project. And then also leveraging translation memory in Transifex so that the previously translated strings in the edX platform project and reviewed strings are transitioned over and also marked in the statuses that they're in. For example, if strings have been reviewed, that they can be transitioned as reviewed. And then also the Aspen strings that this wanted to support, they are embedded only in the Open edX Translations project. So unless someone has access to this project, they're not able to actively assist with that. So yes, so Omar and Brian, if you want to give an update on the ORP 58 status and possible transition timing.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. And Omar, feel free to jump in and correct or add anything if I miss something. So the last release of Open edX that we have before OF 58 is already out, right? So I would be perfectly happy with saying, let's stop doing work in edX platform and do that transition. We would need to pause all work for a little bit to rerun the script that has already been run before to get the most up-to-date translations transferred over. In the previous transfers, everything has worked correctly with reviewed status and everything. If you look in the Open edX Translations project, the strings do have the correct statuses as of the last sync that was run, but we would need to run one more sync. This is based on the understanding that any quints changes would need to happen within the Open edX releases quints resource, as opposed to trying to do stuff directly in edX platform and then move it over there. So anything that is targeting Redwood would be happening in the Open edX translations project, whereas anything for Quince would need to happen in that Quince release resource. I don't know exactly what the strategy for translation updates to released releases are. I would need to know if this gets in the way of that at all. But I also know that as strings are added and stuff like that, you know, things will get out of sync with what has already been released. So it doesn't necessarily make sense to try to sync things in from something where we might have removed or added strings. So that's where I'm standing on it. Omar, do you have anything to add, change?
Yeah, thanks. Nothing to change. What you've said is, I agree with it. I'm also eager to make the cutover once we get mostly approvals. Basically, like, people are aware and are like acknowledging the process change, the new Transifex project links, because as of I think last week, we've had the last major pull request merged in Open edX within the existing platform, I mean, itself, the monolith. So that like was the only blocker. So after that, we have incremental and improvements that are like mostly can happen asynchronously, regardless of the which projects we are using. So yeah, so that's a good thing. I hear that we are having a new MFE. The communications MFE already supports internationalization if someone is using the tutor. So that's out of the way. The other one, which I need to like know about, which is I heard the name, but I'm not really sure what's the link for that MFE. Once I get it, I'm going to make sure that it's supported in the tutor MFE. So that'll resolve one more issue. Yeah. So that's the good news. We have the script ready. We have the edX platform ready. So hypothetically, if all goes well and we do the cutover now, and production can actually pull Atlas translations and during deployment, and it'll be fun. That's like, I mean, this is like the happy scenario that we are like trying to achieve. Unless there is a bug that we don't know about.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would be more than happy to say, let's do the cutover today. And if people want new translations and updated strings on latest master that they're deploying for any given repo, then they need to go ahead and use Atlas to do so. Because the pre-Atlas world was Quince, and moving forward towards Redwood, Atlas will be required. So if you want those strings earlier, you should already be using it. And that'll help us catch anything that we might have missed, but we've done a lot of testing and I feel very confident in what we have built so far. I would be more than happy to make the cutover today.
Oh, wow.
Yes, Ghassan.
Okay. So just to answer your question, Omar, these are the two MFEs. The two MFEs that are only in the Open edX translations project.
Okay. Awesome. I'll open the link.
So Brian, you're saying that we can switch over starting today. So
that would mean we run the last sync script today. So that means anything that has been done in edX platform up until now will make it, all those updates will make it over into the Open edX translations project, because we have a lot of them, but things have happened since the last sync was run. So we'd want to run one more sync. That took about 24 hours last time. I don't expect it to take as long, but I would like to just have a pause on translations as we do that to avoid duplicated work. At that point, once that sync is complete, we can make sure that everybody has access to the new repo. We could even, or the new project on Transifex. I could even make sure that people have access to the new project on Transifex, specifically by giving you, Eden, the admin access that you need. I don't know why you don't have that yet and what wasn't working, but we can work through that together and then make sure that everybody has the access that they actually need to the Open edX translations project on Transifex, with the expectation that all new translation work will be done in that project.
Okay, that sounds good. And I will work together with the Transifex team to determine a way of announcing this to all of the community translators in Transifex, because as I mentioned, in Transifex itself, we support over 130 languages, and there are a large number of translators and reviewers active that need to be notified, but we can post announcements there and have people shift over that way.
Yeah, that was absolutely what I was hoping you would be able to help with,
Yeah.
because from a technical standpoint, I'm more than happy to make the cutover. It's just let's make sure that this is communicated effectively.
Yes.
And if you can help with that side of it, that's amazing. So
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I will do that. Gaston, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to, it's good news about 58. I just wanted to, that's now makes sense because I didn't have the full picture. Because we had the front-end communication only in the new project. So that's mean we don't need to support it the old way, because from now on we will only use the new project.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess for communication we no longer have an issue.
Yeah, everything is going to be using the new project. The Quince is the last release that was doing things the old way. Redwood will be doing things the new way. And we are moving towards being able to do things the new way as soon as possible. Most of the technical stuff has already been merged. We have a few things left to go into Tutor, but even those are looking like they're very close to being merged. So I just want to shout out Omar for all of the great work that he's done, bringing all this together. It has been an incredible feat, and so much work is done to make this happen, and it's just been amazing. So yeah, shout out, thank you. This has been huge.
Thank you so much, Omar. Thank you, Brian.
Sure, it's been a pleasure. The project took a lot more than expected, but it's worth it. We've literally invented a new way to manage translations. I mean, the invention is not mine, but we definitely tried to make it like go live according to the spec.
Very nice. Okay, any other questions regarding OEP 58 and transitioning from the edX platform project to the Open edX translations project?
I guess just when are you willing to do the freeze on translations in the edX platform project? Because I know you want to do that communication. So I guess if you can just give me a green light and then we can run the script and then we can say, all right, time to do the cutover. I can start giving people access to the new project now. If you want to handle that communication, I'm just trying to figure out what the timeline on communicating that new things need to happen there, but also we need to freeze until the script is done, and then communicating that the script is done, and then removing access to edX platform, but also giving access to Open edX translations. Just kind of like, what does that timeline look like?
Yeah, I'm wondering actually, now that you mentioned the access component, I wonder if there's a way in Transifex that we can automatically shift all users with their existing permissions to the new project. That's something I will find out through the Transifex team. So I will inform you once the announcements have gone out regarding the freezing of translations in the edX platform project. Now, how long do you need the freeze to be in place?
Omar could probably answer that better than me. I know the last sync was about 24 hours. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll take 12 hours. What I will do, I will run it now before having the freeze, because by the next time we run it, it'll create a diff. Like, but by diff I mean it'll check which strings I have changed and try to updating them. Updating one string, like like a string by string, is the slow part of the process. So I'll just go ahead and run it, and we'll know what's the worst case scenario whenever we need the freeze. So might not happen today, but I'm happy to hear that this can happen in the next few days.
Yes, exactly. As soon as I have announced the freeze, I will notify you. I will announce it as a 12-hour freeze, and give you the green light once I have done so.
I mean, I'll run the script now.
Yes.
We'll run it one last time when you have the freeze. So you can say 24, you can say anything, but at the moment, I think the last time it took hopefully 2 hours, but I could be wrong. That's the problem. Yeah.
And then the post announcement that you mentioned, Brian, regarding when people can start accessing the new project, if you don't mind posting those in the translation Slack channel, and if you just add here so everybody is tagged in the channel and is aware, that would be helpful for communication, asynchronous communication.
Okay, perfect. So I will wait to hear from you about when to do the freeze announcement. Then we do one last run of the script. Then at any point in here, I guess I can just start giving access. If people, Omar, if people started working in there before the sync, what would happen? Would that break things? Would things that they changed in the Open edX translations project get overwritten? Because if it's just, or would it have something more catastrophic than that? Because if it's just some work was lost, that's not the end of the world. But if it's something breaks and the sync doesn't work because of that, then that's more problematic.
Yeah. So currently the script tries to be pretty safe. The worst part they'll have is that they'll see mostly outdated translations. If they translate anything that has an older translation in the old project, it won't get overridden.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it's not that catastrophic, but I mean, hopefully nothing catastrophic will ever happen. Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty safe. It's pretty a good solid script.
Yeah, nice. Good deal. So yeah, I'll go ahead and try to figure out what it takes to get the admin access over to you, Eden. And then if you want to work with the Transifex team to get the rest of the access over, that can all happen whenever. That's as soon as possible. And then, yeah, once you're ready to communicate that we're doing the freeze, we do the freeze, we do one last run of the script, and yeah, then we're good to go.
Perfect. Okay, great. Ghassan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just had one question on my mind, one quick question. If I work on a library or XBlock that is outside OpenEdX, the organization, it may be mine or someone else, would be possible to add translation for it with this new project, or the repo has to be in OpenEdX? Like if we have so many XBlocks, for example, maintained by many different organizations. That's yeah, just wonder about that.
So it's just a matter of where the translations live. If you wanted to have a fork of the OpenEdX translations project, then yeah, you could add another repo to it, and then just pull in updates from upstream and rebase with your changes to Xblocks as well. That'd be one way to handle that. But yeah, I'm not really sure. It's not something that we supported before. It wasn't within the scope of OEP 58 to support translations for external components like that. But it is something that is possible. It's not like we would add it to Transifex as part of the main set of things that are being translated as part of the OpenEdX project. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, understandable. I mean, for me, I wouldn't want. I get it, but I wouldn't want for. I mean, like for my or me or my organization use, I would just add it, but it would make each one life easier if it would be added. But I understand it would be different, maybe because the security would be changed. But Tribo outside, yeah, yeah, I don't know, yeah. But I mean, it is not an issue for me, but it is like I think everyone would stumble upon it because they would have their own translation. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's definitely possible to add things from outside the organization to the OpenEdX translations repo. It seems like then we need to support translating that. And so it's kind of a bigger question of, do we as a community support all of these things that are not part of the OpenEdX GitHub org? Yeah, it's kind of more of a philosophical question than a technical question at that point.
Mhm. Okay.
Hassan, I would argue that the current method with Atlas makes it easier to translate XBlocks than the previous method. The previous method required people to check in the profiles within Git in every, let's say, in every XBlock separately. Currently, if we want to add a translation for a theme or XBlock, we can, for example, make a Atlas pull from OpenEdX and then follow it with Atlas pull from, let's say, your own organization repo for a specific XBlock. This is currently possible because right now we have all the translations in the Elixir platform is managed within the Git tree. Of course, it's Git ignored for obvious reasons. Within the Git tree, like without having to pip install or manage or having to go with the full release and then install and then debug process. It's just update the translations and refresh the page, or maybe at most restart the server, as opposed to update the translations and then make sure the pip is the package is uninstalled and then installed again, and then restarting the server. So we'll probably have questions from the community, and we're happy to update the documentation and provide discussion forum answers. So I think, yeah, it'll be basically a new feature that people will have to discover and use creatively. Yes.
Yes, we're excited about it.
And then just to be clear, so we are on the same page. This would mean also the translator would use the same project, right? The same Transifex project, or is it just what you are referring it that it will be saved as in the Git repository, but doesn't have to be the same Transifex project?
The file can come from anywhere in the world. As long as it's in the file system, Elixir platform will catch it and will compile it. There
Yeah,
are,
so
of
if you
course,
wanted to have a translations repo similar to the OpenEdX translations repo that's connected to a separate Transifex account, separate Transifex project, separate everything that was doing the syncing, you could have Atlas pull from that for your custom XBlock and do it in the same way that we're handling XBlocks within the OpenEdX translations repo.
So Ghassan, I mean, to summarize, Atlas is now just another Linux command line tool. You can use it. It's like grep, it's like ls, it's like git. Of course, like by default, the tutor images does not support all the workflows that everyone needs, but it's a matter of like adding another call to Atlas pull and do whatever the organization needs, and the Elixir platform and its component will adapt. I mean, I know that I'm speaking this without showing the code, but this is how Atlas is. It's decoupled from everything. It only expects a repository that has translations, and that's it. Like there's no specific format. There's no a lot of like hierarchy to maintain or remember.
Sorry, one more question that I have is, Brian, you mentioned that people may have, for Quince, may have to leverage the Quince release project temporarily to aid with the Quince translations. I just checked in Transifex. I don't see a project like that. I see, I mean, we have the OpenEdX release project.
Yeah, it's the Quince resource within the OpenEdX releases project.
Oh, I see. Okay. And what is the guideline for that? From what time frame to what time frame?
I mean, if we're trying to do point releases for updates to Quince that include translation changes, then those would still be pulled in and synced in the old way to all of the old branches. I think manually, mostly, is how it's been done in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how all of that worked before. It seemed messy, which is something that is way less messy in the post OEP 58 world of how to support updating translations for a named release that's already out versus updating translations for the latest version of code for any given repo.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's a little bit messy. I think Quince is going to be a little bit rocky. If things happen there, we'll figure it out. But I don't have a full understanding of how updating translations on named releases worked. I've seen manual PRs that are just kind of moving things over. It's never been fully clear. But on all of the Quince repos, like the Quince branches on repos still have translations checked in. So at that point, it means that we would just need to update them. We need to get the translated strings checked in to those branches somehow. I think that can happen with some of the Transifex integration from the release resource on the releases project, but yeah, it's still not fully clear.
okay. Sorry, Pedro, you have a question here. Is there any updated workflow process for translations? Do you mean the transition to the OpenEdX translations project, or what do you mean exactly?
Yes, exactly. It's regarding the new transition. If we have any workflow that we need to be updated regarding the process that needs to be done. Sorry, I came late by the meeting, by the way, so that's the reason why I'm asking this question. Sorry.
Yeah, from a translator standpoint, the only difference is which project in Transifex you're doing translation work in. It's no longer going to be edX platform. It will be OpenEdX translations. That's the difference. Yeah.
So, Pedro, we are going to announce it in Slack when all users have been, once all users will be transitioned to the OpenEdX translations project. So at that point, you'll know that you'll just work out of that project rather than the edX platform project.
Thanks.
And to get back to your questions, Brian, regarding the management of named releases. So generally in this group, we have set a deadline before the cutoff occurred for the strings to be sent automatically to the master branch. We would get all the translations and reviews of translations done prior to the cutoff date. Anything after the cutoff date of the master branch merge would have to be done manually, as you stated. In the past, we have been asked by the engineering team not to work directly out of the OpenEdX releases project for translations and reviews. So I think people were just submitting manual PRs to update the named releases, but we were not supposed to be working out of that project directly. That was the instructions previously.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense then. That can continue to work as how we move forward then.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll just do the transition from edX platform to Open edX translations project without any intermediary projects.
Yeah, any updates to Quince will need to be manually PR'd as they have been in the past. So that makes sense. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions about this transition? No. Okay. So let's get to the next point of the agenda, which is the symlink strategy. I shared a spreadsheet in the translations channel. So the idea is, since language codes are pulled based on the URL specific country codes, we wanted to identify default language code, well, primary language codes that should be pulled for specific regions. And then if the primary language code is not available, to select the default code that the language could be pulled from. So for example, French Canadian, right, targeted at the Canada region, but if that language is not available, this language will be pulled by default, but if it's not available, for example, we can pull FR French from France. Now, couple of questions here. One is, what if the country code is a mixed code, for example, ENMX? How does it work in that case in terms of the backend programming? Because it's URL specific.
So we've already run into the issue between like FRCA and FR that you have there is that we have translations that only exist in a country as opposed to a non-country code language code. So this was like the issue with saying, yeah, we already have logic saying fall back from DE_DE to DE, but we don't have DE. So that means that if we have DE_, I don't know what Austria is, but for the two letters, but Austrian German, then that won't fall back to DE. It will try to fall back to DE, but we don't have it. We only have DE_DE. So the idea would be we need to know that for DE, we need to symlink in DE as our default, if that makes sense, right? Okay. Because we've done translations in country-specific things. If we had done the translations in non-country specific language codes, then we wouldn't have a problem at all. Everything would just fall back as expected. The issue that we're running into is that we only have translations in country-specific language codes, and those we never fall back to those. So the symlink strategy would say, all right, what we've done is made it so our DE is actually our DE_DE.
I see.
And that is just linked in that way.
I see. Okay, so I basically don't need column C. In essence, since if we're specifying the regions here, let's say, for example, DE_DE, I'm specifying it for regions Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, and Belgium. This could be the default code for these regions, in essence, in the symlink strategy.
Yeah, so basically what we want to know is what are the language codes without country codes that we support, and then which set of translations, like which language and country code combination where translations are actually being done, do we want to pull in for that?
I see.
So for like French, we would want FR, and if we already have FR_FR, and we want that to be our default French, then we would say, all right, let's symlink FR_FR to FR.
I see. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Brian, I mean, I know that we've discussed that before in previous meetings, but I'm now a little bit confused. At which level we are trying to do the symlink? Is it on the repository or on the file system after the pulling?
So you're saying, would we want to have Atlas create these, or would we want to have it exist in the OpenX translations repo? Is that the question?
Yeah, because like I'm currently thinking is that like, is this even what's a feasible way of implementing that? Or should we leave it, let's say, for I don't know, like for platform operators, we create the list and we instruct them, like we create instructions for them to do that. It's a little bit confusing for me. That's right.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure how we would want to implement this. I'd have to fully think it through. I was kind of hoping that we would just have translations in the language codes that didn't have countries, but it seems like that's not kind of messing with the workflow of people that are actually doing the translations. So we have to support this, and I haven't fully figured out how we want to handle this. I wouldn't be opposed to it being part of Atlas, so that way you could specify during an Atlas pull. I think that would allow more flexibility. But yeah, I haven't thought about this in months at this point. So I understand the problem. I don't understand the solution fully yet. But at least having a defined set of, we want these to be our defaults, would get us somewhere. And then I can think through and come up with a proposal for how to actually handle this.
Yeah, I'm proposing that, I mean, like my preference is that we keep Atlas out of this specific feature, because it will add a lot of complexity to a bash script that might not offer a smooth experience after all to the operator. Maybe I mean, you could handle it on Transifex, basically by like running sync scripts continuously and making Atlas think, yeah, like we have a language, but we don't. Actually, like, it's just a copy. The other way is that, for example, we just ask people to create symlinks after the pulling. Maybe we create a specific tool for that, or edit the Docker images. That's like, I'm trying to keep Atlas out of it because I think it complicates it. That's my...
Okay. I guess another question would be, how would Atlas pull work if we added symlinks to the OpenX translations repo itself?
Last time I tried with symlinks, it didn't work well. And sorry, like, folks, because we're discussing a little bit like too technical here. But with Gits, it doesn't work completely well with symlinks before it's on the file system. So we have to somehow, let's say, clone stuff locally and then ask it to resolve links.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
But I'd rather to keep it, let's say, keep Atlas, how can I say, not aware of the symlinking.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a very reasonable thing. Cool. Yeah, Ghassan?
Yes, I don't want to make this problem complicated, but I think that we have another issue. I mean, not very concerning, but I think it can go hand in hand when thinking about solution for this. That is the other issue we discussed also even the other day, is that some people suggested if we could have a way where I want to run the platform, but only with 2 languages or 3, or because this is typically the case, people run the platform with 2 or max 3 languages. We don't, the platform does not support this, of course, which it will come by default by 10 or 11. But if we also have maybe it could not necessarily that to select which languages we have, maybe this can also be a related problem, I would say. But I also don't know about a solution yet. That's the way I wanted to add. Yeah.
Are you talking about this ticket, Ghassan, where you can minimize the number of languages supported in a given MFE?
Yeah.
Um,
We were talking about MFE specifically because when supporting less languages, it slightly enhance the performance of the MFE.
yeah,
So Atlas already supports filtering which languages you pull in. You can filter which languages Atlas pulls. So that should be doable. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're looking for, but it should be something that is already handled via the filter argument for Atlas.
okay, that's, I think, what you mentioned to me last time, Brian, the language specification feature that was implemented at the time that we discussed it last year in July. It was about 80% implemented.
It's already done, implemented, and support has landed in Tutor core. At least we are adding the plugins as we speak, such as, for example, MFE might not have this option, but it does allow it. Like, so we can remove the will, and you can say Atlas does allow that. The Ghassan, there is a couple of places to think about when trying to specify a language. So one of the things that I can think about is the edX platform itself. There is in the settings, there is a list of languages. And in the admin panel, which is another setting, there is the dark languages. And there is also, of course, the list which Atlas pulls. So it's a little bit out of the scope of Atlas, because I think that what you're concerned about is also the account MFEs, which ignores all of that and shows a static list hard-coded in React. So I think this is a feature that needs to be fixed in the accounts MFE first, and then in the Alexa platform core, like in the monolith itself. After that, I think Atlas support is ready. I mean, as of today.
Okay, I see. Yes, Ghassan?
And I also regarding the support of selecting languages. So just a question, does it like now that tutor would take a command, because tutor is the one, like, for example, build the MFEs? Or because I think tutor would be at which layer of software the Atlas would be used by default. Right?
Docker build time for Tutor. And we are adding support for the configuration repository if anyone is still using Ansible. Brian, please let me know if this is no longer needed. I'm happy to drop that work. But as of today,
I'll bring that up at stand-up today and see if that's something we can drop. Yeah,
I mean, we're doing some checking and installing Vagrant to basically deploy to it, or DigitalOcean Droplet, whatever, a server basically. So yeah, but it's the build time, Ghassan. That's your answer, I hope.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So basically, just circling back to the symlink strategy, I'll complete this spreadsheet for you based on the instructions you have provided today. As you can see here in the language code column, we do have certain codes that are region specific, not country specific, that we're supporting in this group, but then there are others. It's basically a mix of things, which is a bit tricky. But my question, another question that came up, actually, I was discussing this with Ghassan. What if the URL region code has two language codes embedded? So, for example, ENMX. How do you decide which language is being pulled, English or ES419, if this is the browser specific setting of a given user?
I guess we would I would go based on the EN, but that's my naive call there.
Mhm.
And somebody else might have a better understanding there, but I would assume that if we can't find ENMX, then we would want to pull EN, right? And whatever we have as our default, that is EN at that point.
Mhm. Okay.
And I think that's kind of, in general, we would want to focus on the language code minus the country code and try to find that language code if we can't find a country code. And so the problem we're solving is that we don't have those language codes minus country codes. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That sounds good. That sounds like a good strategy. All right. For 419, it would be a special case. What do you mean, Ghassan?
I mean, because for ES 4119, is it the language for South America? So the location would be more
Yeah.
like, let's say, yeah, more deciding which language to view or to display. Yeah.
What I did for ES419, I basically specified the regions in Latin America that should be covered under this specific code. I don't know if this is good enough for you, Brian, but I wouldn't know what to put, I guess, into this column. What is the because it could be, it's basically all of these for Argentina, Mexico, you know, all of these particular country codes. Do you want me to add all the country codes into this column that are part of this column? Or what's the
So this is a little bit more complicated because I think the idea is that we would expect things to fall back to ES419 instead of ES_ES in if someone had like ESMX, I guess, and we don't have ESMX, we would expect it to be ES419 instead of ES at that point. Yeah, that was a little bit odd. It does add a layer of complication. I don't think we have anything supporting fallbacks in code other than, hey, if we don't have the specific country code that you have, then go with the language code. So in that scenario, like if we want to look into building that out, that's something we can look into. It is a bit of an edge case. I would suggest to an operator to say, if you want your default for Spanish to be ES419 instead of ESES, then make that your default. If that is something that we can create tooling for operators for. But I think really what we need to focus on is just by default, what are we considering our fallback for someone that has a country code we don't have, but a language code that we do? What language do we show them?
Yes.
Yeah, because really we don't, with the existing tooling, we just need to know what translations do we put in if the only thing that is being requested is ES, because we already went through the part of logic that says, do we have this country code? And it said no. So now it says, do we have this language code? And now we only know that we're looking for ES, right? And at that point, it's okay. So instead of saying, no, we don't have it, show them English, it's yes, we have this other language, that this other country code that we've decided to be our default if all we know is that you want ES.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, oh, sorry. But I guess my question is, for example, here with Germany, we talked about Austria, we talked about Switzerland. Here, I would enter the country-specific codes for Austria, for Switzerland into this column, right? So that
No, all I need to know is for DE, where do we want those strings to come from?
oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Austria wouldn't be covered under this scenario.
It would, because it is DE underscore
AR.
AR. Yeah. Right. And we don't have DE underscore AR. So it starts looking for DE.
I see.
And at that point, we're like, okay, so we're looking for DE. We have that. It's DE.
I see. Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll start with this outline. I'll finish it for you. I'll ping you once this sheet is done.
Sounds great. Thank you.
From there, no problem. Okay. In case of Portuguese, we only have PT. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, how about Angola? Angola.
They speak Portuguese as well. Okay. Okay. PT. Good.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, but they usually prefer PTPT, but PTBR is also acceptable for them.
Okay. Thank you. I think they're more closer to Portuguese.
Yeah, that seems the same thing with Cape Verde, Mozambique, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Thank you for that information. Good to know.
Okay. All right. So we are nearing the end of the meeting here. Any questions before we wrap up? Yes, Cecilia?
Sorry. Last question I asked on behalf of one of our team members. He was asking if you can enable Persian for X blocks.
Persian.
For X blocks. Current X blocks, you have limited languages, right? And if you can add the new languages, maybe he's able to find a reviewer.
Yeah. If you have a dedicated reviewer, we can add it to our list of languages.
Okay. Let me speak to him afterwards. This is one of the technical team as well.
Cecilia, would you mind sharing the engineer's name? Asking about that.
Imad.
Imad, yeah. I believe I've reviewed a couple of his PRs. His PRs is fine.
Okay.
Except that we have I think he's faced a bug that prevented the translations from appearing. So, but yeah, I believe the new project, if there's a maintainer, I guess we can, well, that's up to Eden, but I guess we can just add that.
Yeah.
I'm in Persian. So yeah, please let us know before the migration so we don't miss that. If it's a highly translated and has a maintainer, we should make sure that it's migrated.
Okay, let me talk to him afterwards if he can be the maintainer or someone else.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate the time, and we will see each other again in a month, but we'll communicate asynchronously via Slack. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.